Welcome to the Weekly Roar, coming live from the Lion's Den, helping new managers become great leaders and awesome bosses. And now, here's your host, Greg Storch.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lion's Den. This is the Weekly Roar. It's great to have you all back in the Lion's Den. Today, I'm going to be sharing some thoughts about striking a balance between climbing the ladder to the top and making connections along the way. We're going to jump right into that in just a second. But first, my name is Greg Storch. I'm the owner of Lion Enterprise, host of the Weekly Roar, and founder of a worldwide bartered coaching program called The Helping Hand. I'm a certified professional leadership coach and a certified leadership speaker and trainer. Now, if you joined me last week in the Lion's Den for the Weekly Roar, or if you caught the replay, then you got to hear my big secret to having a great meeting. I shared the reasons why the meeting before the meeting is what makes your meeting a good one. Now, if you weren't able to join us last Wednesday for the Weekly Roar, or maybe you just want to watch that session over again, or maybe you want to share it out with someone who you think might find value in it, you can access the free video resources on my website at lion-enterprise.com. When you get to my homepage, just click on the Lion's Pride Library menu and find video number 142 for last week. And while you're in the Lion's Pride Library, make sure you look around and stay a while. It's a great free resource, and it's another way for you to get more of the roar. Okay, it's time to get today's lesson learned in leadership started, and I'm calling this one, How to Get to the Top Without Being Lonely. Let me start out with a confession. Man, maybe I should start doing these on Sundays. My confession is this. Up until about 7 or 8 years ago, I used to believe the old saying that it's lonely at the top. I honestly believed that the position of a leader was above all others, and at the top of the organizational pyramid, there was only room for one spot. I knew as I promoted through the ranks in the military and even in the corporate world that my relationships would change. But I think I took it too literally. I stopped doing all the things I should be doing when it came to connecting with my people. Yes, as our positions change, our relationships change, but they don't have to be completely abandoned. Suffice it to say, when I did arrive at the top, it was a bit lonely, and it was pretty much my own doing. So it makes sense that I believed that as a leader, it was lonely at the top. Well, I'm not afraid to admit when I've made a mistake, and that, my friends, was a big mistake. So today, I wanted to talk to you about the difference between being a climber and being a connector, and why it's important to be both things as a leader. President Theodore Roosevelt used to say, "People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care." It's one of my all-time favorite sayings, especially when it comes to leadership. The more I think about it, the more I realize that it sheds light on the fact that leadership is just as much about relationships as it is about position. The thing is, a lot of people are so busy trying to work their way to the top that they forget the importance of connecting with others along the way. Hey, look, there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to make that climb. Leaders have that natural tendency to want to do that. We see opportunities before others do, and we go after them. We are natural climbers. So the question becomes not whether you should try to get to the top, but rather how you should try to get there. Every time I hear the phrase, climbing the corporate ladder, I get a few pictures that come into my mind. Naturally, I see a person just climbing an actual ladder. But for me, knowing what I know now, I also see pictures of someone a little higher on the ladder who's reaching back to help others reach the rungs that they've just climbed. I also see someone who is climbing at a pace that allows others to follow along on the climb. What I've learned is that when someone climbs over someone else, that other person will try to pull them back down. Getting to the top, climbing that corporate ladder, so to speak, without connecting with others will only result in leading without allegiance. In other words, people may follow you strictly based on your position because they have to follow you. When I was growing up, we had a climbing structure at our elementary school that was shaped like half of a globe. It reminded me of Thunderdome. There were these metal bars that were all connected so that anyone could climb up and around the structure any way they wanted to. We used to play King of the Hill on that thing. First, it was a race to the top platform. Whoever got to the top of that bubble first was King of the Hill. And as the other kids were climbing their way around, the king would try to tag those getting near the top. If you got tagged, back to the bottom you went. King of the Hill has to be the worst game that a child can play as it relates to developing a belief system in leadership. At an early age, we learn to race to the top, beat everyone else, and then make sure no one else gets to the top with you and that they stay down. Well, I can tell you that there will come a day in everyone's leadership journey where they're faced with the choice of climbing all over everyone else to make sure they get to the top, or connecting with others, making that climb, and helping them along the way. Now that I think about it, even in the Navy, this concept was fostered. I remember being told many times that I had to look out for number one because nobody else was going to. Thankfully, I didn't listen to that. And what I found out was that it wasn't true at all. There were plenty of leaders who were there to help me advance in my military career. And as I began to see my own success in the military and even in the private sector, it didn't take long before others were asking me to show them how to do what I had done. Here's an example. When I got my certification as a project management professional back in 2013, I was leading a rather large organization as a program manager. A fifth of the employees at the company I was working for were assigned to my contract. I had several managers that came to me to ask me how I got certified, and now the old me would have probably thought, figure it out yourself. I did. But this was one of the many times in my leadership career where I had a choice to make. Would I keep my knowledge I gained all to myself, or would I share what I knew with others to help them achieve the same thing? If I held on to what I knew, I could stay ahead of the rest of them and I could continue advancing, or I could share it with them and help them become successful too. I guess those were the early days of me starting to develop a more abundance mindset as a leader. You know, leaders who make the climb to the top at the expense of others, they typically are fostering a scarcity mindset. A scarcity mindset makes us believe that there isn't enough out there for everyone to have. So we have to get ours before someone else takes it, whatever that is. An abundance mindset, on the other hand, that takes the fear away and it allows us to operate under a mindset that there's plenty to go around. And so we don't mind assisting others to make the climb. We don't see them as competition. Well, in that first year after achieving my PMP certification, I helped 12 other managers do the same thing within and outside of my own directorate. So, the question I want you to spend time reflecting on today is whether or not you're a climber or a connector. You see, most leaders fall into one of those two categories. If you aren't sure yet, let's talk a little bit about some of the differences between the two. So, first of all, there's a difference between a climber and connector in the way they think. Climbers tend to think vertically, while connectors think more horizontally. A person who tends to be a climber is fully aware of who's ahead of them and who's behind them, especially in terms of the organizational chart, right? They watch their performance, they watch their numbers really closely, and they compare them to their peers. Moving forward is what's important, and anything else can be devastating to their ego. But connectors, well, connectors think in terms of sliding over where others are at. They tend to focus more about who's on the journey with them and how they can come alongside with them. So, the first difference between the two is how they think. The next difference is where they place their focus. Climbers spend most of their time thinking about moving up and ahead, so they stay focused on their own position. Connectors, however, stay focused on relationships. When it comes to this one, think in terms of ladders versus bridges. Are you building more ladders or are you spending your time building bridges? Ladders only get us from the bottom to the top in a vertical climb, but bridges let us travel in both directions, allowing us to move horizontally to where others are at. When it comes to climbers and connectors, there is also a big difference in what they value. Climbers, well, they value competition. They see everything through a competition lens. And when they can only see things from that perspective, it can make them take actions that will get them to the top at all costs. Connectors, on the other hand, they value cooperation. Connectors are more interested in using their relationships with others in order to foster a sense of cooperation. Connectors tend to seek the win-win. So, another big difference is what they find value in. Another place where climbers and connectors differ is in what they're seeking. You can probably figure out that a climber would seek power, while a connector would seek relationships. Here's the thing with climbers. Their mindset is set to always win, and that leads to a natural desire for power because power is what helps a climber move faster to reach the top quicker than everyone else. The problem with that mindset is that ladder climbing isn't an individual sport. I mean, we can climb it alone, but the thing is that anything we achieve on our own is only going to pale in significance to what we achieve together with a team. If you really want to achieve something significant, you'll need the help of others. You'll need a highly functioning team to do it. And one of the ways to develop a team like that is to form partnerships. And that's exactly what connectors thrive on. Okay, let's talk about a couple of other differences when it comes to leaders who are climbers and leaders who are connectors. So another difference can be found in what these two leaders build. That's right. While climbers work on building their image, connectors are busy building consensus. Hey, let's face it, as we climb the ladder of success, how far and how fast we climb tends to be related and dependent on other people's perceptions of how we're performing. While climbers are busy building their own image, connectors are spending their time getting others on the same sheet of music so that they can all work together towards a common cause. Okay, and this last one is a big differentiator for climbers and connectors. Another big difference between these two types of leaders is where they stand. Naturally, climbers like to stand apart, while connectors migrate towards standing together. Climbers want to distinguish themselves from everyone else. They're like the Olympic runner in the 880. In that race, the runner spends the first lap maintaining the lead position. And then on the second lap, the runner's focus shifts to creating separation from the rest of the runners. Connectors will spend their time and focus, their energy on getting closer to people. One of the ways they do that is they find common ground with them. And once they do, they all find a place where they can stand together. So, those are some of the differences between climbers and connectors. And with everything in life, it's not good to be all of one thing or all of the other. The best is really when you can blend these two together. Now, we can't deny the leader's natural tendency to climb. We're natural climbers. That's why we're leaders. Leaders are ones who know the way, go the way, and show the way. And in order for us to be able to do those three things, we have to be both climbers and connectors. All I wanted you to do today was just think about where you stand right now. Maybe you lean more towards being a climber. Maybe you lean more towards being a connector. Now, what I found where you stand on the spectrum tends to also be directly proportional to age. The younger we are, the more we show up as a climber. And of course, the older we become, the more we find ourselves as connectors. A lot of those who find themselves staying in the climber spectrum tend to be challenged in the area of relationships. As a matter of fact, one of the biggest problems professionals have with achieving career success is not from a lack of competence, but you guessed it, their inability to foster relationships. When you make the climb without making connections, you're going to gain authority, no doubt, but you won't gain many friends. The ultimate goal, the perfect balance, is to make friends and gain authority. So, if you think you're on the climber side of the spectrum and need to shift more towards the connector side, you may want to slow your climb and focus on relationship building along your journey. On the other hand, if you're connecting well with others, but your desire to climb isn't as strong as it could be, you might end up with a lot of friends as a leader, but not much authority to get anything done. If that's you, then what you can do to strike a better balance is to increase your energy so you can intensify your sense of purpose and urgency. The most effective leaders are those who can find a way and put forth the necessary actions to balance both connecting and climbing. Leadership and management have all seen shifts in what's valued over the decades. We've seen management fads come and go. I think we've all seen the days of positional leadership that subscribed to a do as I say, not as I do type mentality, to a shift where we develop trust. We listen to people and act with courage. It's the difference between the era of Henry Ford and the John D. Rockefellers and the days of Google and Zappos. At the end of the day, being at the top is only temporary. We can't stay there forever. But the thing that will always remain, despite the change in our circumstances, are the relationships we've made. If you take a connector's approach to your leadership, whether that's in the C-suite or in the home office with your family, you give yourself a much better chance at success, however you define it. If I've said this once, I've said it a million times already, and that is that nobody has ever achieved anything of significance without the help of others. Even if you end up not succeeding in something you've taken on, if you do it the right way, if you attempt the climb as a connector, the worst that can happen is that you'll end up making friends along the way. And that, my friends, not only makes our journey a more pleasant one, but it will help set us up for success in the future. We never know how we might help others as we make our climb through life. So remember this: be a connector, not just a climber, because leadership is relational as much as it is positional. All right, that's going to do it, everyone. I got to run to go meet up with some new friends I've made. Thank you guys for showing up today. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to our next episode. So please plan to join me next Wednesday in the Lion's Den for my next lesson learned in leadership, where I'll explain how the choices we make us. Choice is our greatest superpower. I'm going to talk about more of that next week. If you want to keep running to the roar, then come back to the Lion's Den next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time to join me for the weekly roar. Thanks everybody for showing up today. I appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you again. Until then, remember, be powerful, but stay poised just like a lion. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching the Weekly Roar live event at lionenterprise.com. If you enjoyed this video, please tell others to join us each week here in the Lion's Den. Thanks again, and see you next week.